I would like to thank the Economist for the honorary invitation to today's insightful event, an event that gives us the opportunity to look ahead after 16 difficult months. And of course, I would like to welcome once again my friend Pascal and thank him for the great work he does as a president of the Eurogroup. During this period, Greece has been fighting the invisible enemy of COVID-19 and its social and economic consequences promptly, methodically, and efficiently, as it has been acknowledged both inside and outside the country. Our economy has depicted remarkable resilience. A series of indicators and recent positive evolutions prove that we have managed to pave the way for a shift and strong recovery in 2021 and high and sustainable growth from 2022 onwards. Some of these are the following. The economic recession has been contained. Unemployment is decreasing. Industrial production is steadily increasing for 6 consecutive months. Manufacturing expectations are strengthening. Economic sentiment is improving significantly. Deposits continue to rise. Non-performing loans are decreasing. The electronic transactions have been enhanced. They are from 15 to 25% higher in the last 4 months compared with 2019. And at the same time, tourist arrivals are more than double compared with 2020. Just to give you 2 concrete figures, the moving 7 days average for domestic flights last Monday was minus 25.5% compared with minus 38% 3 weeks ago. And international flights are minus 42.2% compared with 58% 3 weeks ago. The cost of borrowing in money markets remain negative. Cost of borrowing in capital markets is in record low rates. The spread of the Greek government bonds is constantly shrinking. The competitiveness of the Greek economy is improving. And finally, the Greek sovereign is being upgraded despite the pandemic crisis. Therefore, we have a good starting point for the post-COVID-19 era. We expect that we will achieve a recovery of 3.6% in 2021. However, the consensus of the market is for a recovery of around 5% this year. Let's hope that we will manage to revise our projections upwards in a couple of months. Is this enough? The answer is definitely not. The key is not only to recover, but to achieve high and sustainable growth. In other words, not only to enhance GDP, but also to improve its quality, to enhance exports and at the same time investments, more than consumption. And I think we will achieve it. The key is to implement a coherent, pro-growth economic policy based on 7 pillars. And we are already implementing policies, specific policies, based on these 7 pillars. The first one, targeted support for households and enterprises with a gradual shift to measures fostering the restart of economic activity. The transition from support measures to measures of a more growth-enhancing character all over Europe has to be gradual, prudent, and adjusted to the evolutions in the health field, while also taking into account the operational progress of the Recovery and Resilience Facility. The second pillar has to do with the fiscal policy. We have to implement, and we already do that, a prudent fiscal policy, but in the direction of further reduction of taxes and social security contributions. The third pillar has to do with cash reserves. We have to maintain strong cash reserves, now stand at 25% of our GDP, the highest level in Europe, through the implementation of a consistent, smart, and insightful issuing strategy. The fourth pillar has to do with credit expansion. Achieving sustainable credit expansion, we're a bank-based country, through further strengthening our banking sector. Within this scope, the Hercules Asset Protection Scheme was prolonged for 18 more months. Moreover, two systematic banks, Alpha and Piraeus Bank, have successfully completed their share capital increases. The fifth pillar has to do with structural reforms. Despite adverse circumstances, we have managed to implement significant reforms amid the pandemic. Among others, just in the last 2 months, the law on debt settlement and the provision of a second chance was fully implemented. The new labor law was adopted in June, modernizing the working environment in Greece and increasing competitiveness. The first phase of the objective value system reform was successfully concluded. The financing closing of the Hellenikon project transaction was undertaken, and the tender process for Skaramaga shipyards was successfully completed. Going forward, some of our focus areas include broadening the tax base by further improving tax collection, fighting tax evasion and smuggling, increasing public sector's efficiency and productivity, promoting digitalization in the public and private sector, improving the educational and the justice system, incentivizing innovation and investment, lifting existing barriers, and enhancing the sustainability of the pension system. The sixth pillar has to do with the available European funds, the rational use of available European funds. The funds from the Recovery and Resilience Plan and the multi-annual financial framework allocated to Greece amount to 70 billion euros for the next 7 years. We stand ready to make the best use of them. Our readiness is actively proved. We signed today with Mr. Gentiloni the grants agreement. We have already approved the technical bulletins of the first 12 projects to be included in the Greece 2.0 plan worth 1.4 billion euros. The projects cover infrastructure modernization and digitalization of records and archives, enhancing systems for the digital government services, improving the investment environment through a new spatial planning project, the north section of Central Greece Motorway, the A65, as well as restoring parts of the Acropolis in Athens. Our National Recovery and Resilience Plan, Greece 2.0, was one of the first 12 plans adopted by the Ecofin last week. This verifies that it is a coherent, realistically ambitious plan, a plan that aspires to facilitate a paradigm shift in the Greek economy and institutions. It combines economic efficiency with social inclusion and justice through the implementation of a series of reforms and investments that will lead to a more extroverted, competitive, environmentally friendly economic model. And finally, the seventh pillar has to do with the creation of a more flexible European fiscal framework. Greece is actively participating in initiatives on the new European financial architecture, which will include, among others, the deepening of the economic and monetary union, the completion of the banking union, the promotion of the capital markets union, and modifications to the Stability and Growth Pact. Thus, since we are implementing policies based on these 7 pillars, I'm realistically optimistic that we will manage to achieve high and sustainable growth. If you have a look on the latest European Commission forecast, you will see that in 2022, Europe projects for Greece a growth of 6%, while the European average will be 4.5%. We will go much better than Europe. And at the same time, the two main instruments, investments and extroversion, will go much better compared with the European average. Europe projects an increase of 15% in investments compared with the European average of 5%, and an increase of exports of 8%, while the European average will be 0. To conclude, Greece is already implementing policies which create the preconditions for strong and sustainable growth. Policies which provide the impetus to form a more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive post-COVID-19 economic landscape. Policies which allow us to be realistically optimistic for a better future for our country and our people, but also for our common house, Europe.